Alrighty. So, you all know what we're going to be talking about today. I know what we're going to be talking about today. I'm not going to be showing fan art because I just do not think it is appropriate. I've already gotten the terrible jokes out of my system, all that fun stuff. Now, we have to talk about what happened yesterday. So, at an event in Utah where Charlie Kirk was speaking in front of hundreds of people, thousands of people, I don't know the exact numbers, he got shot. He got shot in the neck by a bolt-action rifle from about 200 yards away while he was speaking against trans people and trying to argue that something gang violence, the details of it don't matter. But the last words out of his mouth before he passed were literally violence, and then the shot happened. So, let's go ahead and get a couple things out of the way first. It should be noted, nobody should be celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk. But also understand that is very fundamentally different from being happy that a man who spent several years of his life spreading hate-filled propaganda to people can no longer spread that propaganda. If there is something for you to celebrate, it is the fact that there is one less voice that is spreading that propaganda. Though how that one less voice happened is not something that you should be celebrating. Because if we live in a world where more people are engaging in political violence, then we live in a world where it is no longer safe for any of us to go outside and speak our minds about the things that we care about. Ron Perlman, you have it right. The murder is bad. The loss, however, is not felt. I will not mourn the loss of Charlie Kirk. I will mourn that it was a murder. I do not think he should have been shot. I do not think that anybody should have engaged in that level of violence. But I'm also not going to be so naive as to say the phrase, I do not condone political violence. And the reason I will not say that phrase is because nobody, and I mean nobody, who speaks that phrase actually means it. And let me explain. For every person who says that they do not believe in political violence, but they are okay with their tax dollars going to the police force or the military and recognizes the needs of law enforcement and military, you actually do condone political violence. You condone political violence so long as a state apparatus with some kind of oversight is able to enact it. What you seem to actually have a problem with is not political violence. What you seem to actually have a problem with is vigilante violence, stochastic terrorism. Those are the things that you have a problem with. Those are the things that you have an issue with. It has nothing to do with political violence. We are all okay with political violence. We just wring our hands over what that means. Axo says all violence is political. I disagree with that take. If I go out randomly into the street and I just punch somebody in the nutsack for the lulz, there's nothing political about that. There's nothing political about that whatsoever. That's just me being a moron. I do not agree that all violence is political. I just think that we use the term political violence as a catch-all for too many things when we are actually meaning we do not agree with vigilante violence. We do not agree with stuff like that. Now, I think it is also safe to say that there are certain people who create an environment where they are more likely to be attacked. Charlie Kirk is one of those people. The United Healthcare CEO was one of those people. That does not mean that it is good that violence is happening to them, but it does mean that they did stoke an environment where it was more likely for that to happen. And for Charlie Kirk, we are actually going to go over a little bit of that himself. Now, no, I'm not trying to engage in victim blaming here. I'm not. What I am trying to say is, if you are willing to argue in favor of other people being repressed, eventually some of those other people may end up trying to find a way to stop you from saying those things. But I want to show you guys a couple things before we get started. So, the first image I want to show you guys is this one from Kira Won't Miss. Now, I disagree with like 60% of what comes out of this particular Twitter account, but Kira says here, Charlie Kirk is a father and a husband. He is a human. I don't care if you politically disagree with him. Nothing justifies this sick act. So let me be clear, as one human being to another, had it been cancer that took him, I would feel identically. I do not feel like any of us should be emotionally blackmailed because he happened to have a partner and he happened to be able to breed. I do not think that that is fair to the people whom he literally preached against his entire life. Again, this is not me trying to condone the murder of a human being. That is not my intention here. My intention here is to show that if there are people who are going to celebrate the fact that right now Charlie Kirk is no longer spewing his hateful rhetoric, they would be celebrating that irrespective of how that came about. Axo says Hitler was also someone's son, guys. He loved his dogs. Exactly. I don't agree with this emotional blackmail. I believe that we should be able to judge Charlie Kirk on the content of his character and the words he said. So, there's another account here, Marlon Wilson. I do not have any ill will towards Marlon. In fact, I've actually been on his debate show before. But Marlon says here, what kills me is the lack of sympathy and empathy for the killing of Charlie Kirk. This man had a wife and 2 children. These people can't even put their radical ideologies to the side to show compassion and offer prayers. First of all, Marlon, I'm an atheist. I won't be offering you prayers because I feel like it is quite literally doing nothing. I do not feel like that would be appropriate. Unfortunately, some of my closest people are the ones that are doing it. When one can't see past their ideology to show love and care for their common man, that means they too are radicalized and are lumped into the category of a radical leftist. So, first of all, what the fuck is a radical leftist? I've seen Marlon posting about this for days now, and I do not know what a radical leftist is to him. It has nothing to do with leftism to disagree with the things that Charlie Kirk said. Now, it just so happens the things that Charlie Kirk said are the words of a radical white nationalist who's the CEO of a company whose job is to be a think tank for other radical white nationalists. I feel as though that information needs to be pointed out. I feel like sane-washing Charlie Kirk is a bad idea. We don't need to be doing that. We need to be addressing Charlie Kirk as the human being that he was, not some random perfect version of himself because he had a wife and kids or some shit. As for the type of things that he advocated for, well,
is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Just saying. So, Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters.
So, I'm just curious. If a Christian is to hide behind the Bible, if a Christian is to hide behind the Bible and use it as a justification to argue that, well, in God's perfect world, you would be killed, you would be stoned to death. I'm just curious right now, what is the appropriate response when somebody is advocating for years that you should be stoned to death? What is the appropriate level of sympathy there? What is the appropriate level of empathy? Now, we could use the appropriate level of empathy that Charlie Kirk wants. If you guys remember the quote from Charlie Kirk, he said that empathy was a made-up New Age term. He preferred sympathy because he'd rather show pity to people. You see, in the world of Charlie Kirk, it was better to look down on people than to put yourself in their shoes. Now, further on, if you are familiar with Noah, runs the Scathing Atheist, I actually agree very heavily with his words here. You do not have to condone murder to celebrate one. If I celebrated him dying of cancer, nobody would accuse me of endorsing cancer. And I agree with this take. I can celebrate the fact that a hateful bigot who has argued for the stripping of rights away from my loved ones is no longer able to do that. The method of how that happened is immaterial to me. And then, separate to that, I cannot condone the violence that happened towards him or the ripping of him away from his family. Rehab Mahakala says, it's probably reflects bad on me, but I've been having to hold myself back from saying he was no angel to a lot of this gaslighting. Yeah. Now, another friend of mine, or I say friend of mine, we had a falling out. That information is publicly available, but when he says things that I agree with, I am still going to point out that those are good things to say. Matt Dillahunty points out, zero sympathy for him. I have sympathy for his kids, which is more than he had for anyone else's. And you know what? I can agree with that. I can agree with that entirely. So, let's get a point out of the way. Right now, the right wing is trying to dial up the rhetoric for political violence. They are trying very, very hard to dial that rhetoric up. And they're trying to do so by saying that Democrats caused this to happen. Democrats are responsible for this violence. Democrats are responsible for the rise in political violence over the last such and such years. Now, that's really funny, because when we look at the data in the United States for the last 30 years, we find that actually most of the tragic incidents, most of the shootings, most of the political initiated violence is coming from far-right extremists to the tune of 84%. Sock Done Left actually did a little bit of data crunching here as well, showing similar numbers. Republicans or far-right extremists were responsible for 85% of political assassinations, specifically in the United States. Do not let the right wing gaslight you into thinking that the left is somehow the violent one. When we look at the actual numbers and the data, that does not bear out. That never actually bears out. But you know, I feel like in the world where Charlie Kirk's attacker, where Charlie Kirk's murderer is actually found, we should treat his murderer with the exact same level of respect that he advocated for similarly violent people when they went after his own political opponents. You see, if you remember, Charlie Kirk had some specific words for when Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked.
I mean, I'm looking at Politico.com. I'm looking at the New York Times. I'm looking at all these places, and there's a little bit of mention here. For example, Politico says top Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault. Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly? And why is...
Because, well, Mr. Charlie Kirk, the numbers bear out that it is more likely that that is the case. Anyway, let's continue.
He's still in jail. Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet his bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out and then go ask him some questions. I wonder what his bail is. They're going after him with attempted murder, political assassination, all this sort of stuff. I'm not qualifying it. I think it's awful. It's not right. But why is it that in Chicago you're able to commit murder and be out the next day? Why is it that you're able to trespass, second-degree murder, arson, threat of public official, cashless bail? This happens all over San Francisco, but if you go after the Pelosi's, oh, you're let out immediately.
So, just saying, if we were to have the exact same response that Charlie Kirk had when people he disagreed with politically were attacked violently, then we would be sending money to the murderer. Just saying that. It's a good idea not to Fed post. It's a good idea not to say that you're going to do this. I'm just saying, looking at what has happened, looking at how Charlie Kirk responded to these things himself, this is what he would be doing. But the response to the murder of Charlie Kirk is something else that I really want to laser focus on. You see, yesterday, Speaker Mike Johnson ordered a pause, or requested a pause, in the House in the middle of a series of votes in order to call for a moment of silence and prayer for Charlie Kirk. Lauren Boebert wanted someone to lead a prayer out loud, and several Democrats objected to this. Now, the reason they did this, guess what? It was because there had been other school shootings that day, and no moment of silence was called for the school shooting. No moment of silence was called for the victims of a fucking shooting. But a moment of silence was called for Charlie Kirk. Check it out.
What purpose did the gentlelady from Colorado rise?
You can't really hear her, but she's explaining what happened with Charlie Kirk. In an attempt to have a moment of silence.
Let's, wait a minute. The House will be in order. 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 We will join prayer right after this, okay?
Okay, so it should be noted that no such moment of silence was requested for the 3 who were shot and critically injured at the Colorado High School literally an hour before that. You know what this tells me? This tells me that the future of the Republican Party, as they see it, the future of our country, rests not with the children that they hand-wring so goddamn much about protecting in the womb or otherwise. They've never given a shit about the children. What they care about are the millionaires who can advocate for their political agenda. Those are the people that the Republican Party have now publicly shown that they care about infinitely more than the people who are quite literally the future of our country. Established millionaires who spout political opinions that are helpful to the party cause are worth more than the children that they strip the rights of women away in order to claim they protect. That is the Republican Party of 2025, and that is sickening. But it's not just the response from the House that's scary to me. Oh no, this is also terrifying.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America.
Bear in mind, the reason that Charlie liked open debate was because it enriched him. Charlie liked open debate because he had a company that was founded on the idea of speaking one word out of one side of your mouth and meaning something else out of the other one.
He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom.
And now I was worried that the right wing would make him a martyr. That worry got solidified the minute that the president quite literally said he was a martyr.
And there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith. And we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven. Our prayers are with his wife, Erica, the 2 young, beloved children, and his entire family, who he loved more than anything in the world. We ask God to watch over them in this terrible hour of heartache and pain. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible.
Now, these words could ring decently okay on their own. These words right here, violence is not okay, unless we pay the police to do it, I guess. Violence is not okay. It's not a thing that we want. Sure, why not? Anyway.
For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today.
So instead of it being a, hey, we all need to calm down, it turns into, actually, no, this is all on the left. We're just going to demonize the left. Okay, Trump, continue. Once again, actual data and statistics show that you are incorrect, but sure, why not?
And it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to others.
What does contributed to this atrocity mean? What does that mean, Mr. President? How does one contribute to this atrocity? Does that mean people who engaged in the stochastic system that could lead people to this kind of violence? I know you'd never do that, because then you would be going to jail yourself. Does it mean the people who are celebrating the death? Does it mean the people who constantly said that shit like this should happen? Because, once again, you really don't want the end result of trying to persecute people, prosecute people who are engaged in that stochastic system.
Other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Tonight, I ask all Americans to commit themselves.
So, again, we have no information on the motive of the shooter. We have no information on who the shooter is. We have no information outside of the murder weapon and what the guy looks like in a hoodie and glasses. We do not know his name. We do not know his political affiliation. We know nothing at the time of recording. And yet, our president, everybody, thinks that it is appropriate to immediately say this was carried on by funded organizations by far left extremists. He has nothing to go off of, but he can certainly blame people for no reason.
To the American values for which Charlie Kirk lived and died, the values of free speech, citizenship, the rule of law, and the patriotic devotion and love of God. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory, may God watch over his family, and may God bless the United States of America.
Okay, so what we just witnessed there was the President of the United States openly calling for people on the left who he cannot be specific about, basically engaging in stochastic terrorism where people on the left are concerned. Because when you hear from the president that, oh, everybody who is responsible, we need to make them pay. We need to make sure that those people who are responsible come to justice. Okay, that's entirely fine, but by being so vague about it, I don't know what that means. And I bet you most of the people watching it fill in the blanks on what they think it means. Anyway, when the stroke takes him. But that said, it's not just the president who's responding this way. Check out Fox News.
Trump gets hit in the ear. Charlie gets shot dead. They came after Kavanaugh with a rifle to his neighborhood. They went after Musk's cars. They just shot 2 Jews outside the embassy.
Who's they? Who's they? You see, when you say they, it fills in the blank for people. They can put in whatever boogeyman they want. Is it the people who are funded by George Soros? Who the fuck is they, Jesse?
Think about it. Scalise got shot, barely survived. It's happening. You got trans shooters. You got riots.
We have trans shooters, all of like the 5 that have existed ever. We're ignoring all of the other shooters, but we are going to talk about the trans ones. These piece of shit organizations, like Fox News, because I can actually name the problems. Unlike, well, Fox News. These people are looking for someone to lynch.
In LA, they are at war with us. Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us. And what are we going to do about it? How much political violence are we going to tolerate? And that's the question we're just going to have to ask ourselves.
Let's ignore the fact that we've had open attempts at assassinating Democratic senators and Democratic representatives. Let's ignore the fact that we saw this happen in Minnesota. I was in D.C. when the Minnesota shootings happened. Let's ignore the fact that Democrats are being targeted by violence as well, and let's focus on it just being the right wing. Again, numbers do not fucking lie. The numbers show that while both sides are capable of violence, there is certainly a side that is shown far more want to reach for the gun immediately in these situations. Midas Touch put together a bunch of the responses to this. Let's go ahead and take a look at them. Libs of TikTok going, "This is war." Joni Manarino, "The Democratic Party must be classified as a terror organization, and their members and leaders should be treated accordingly." Brian Eastwood, "Charlie Kirk getting shot is the shot heard around the country. I'm ready for civil war." Sean Davis, "When Democrats lose elections they couldn't steal, they murder the people they were unable to defeat." What fucking election did Charlie Kirk get in? What are you talking about? Patrick Casey, "It's time to bring the hammer down on the left." Jesse Waters, again, "They are at war with us, whether we want to accept it or not. They are at war with us, and what are we going to do about it?" Elon says, "If they won't leave us in peace, then our choice is fight or die." Laura Loomer, and bear in mind, many of these people are people who have had positions of power in Trump's administration. Laura Loomer saying, "It's time for the Trump admin to shut down, defund, and prosecute every single leftist organization. If Charlie Kirk dies from his injuries, his life cannot be in vain. We must shut these lunatic leftists down once and for all. The left is a national security threat." So, out of one side of their mouths, these people, these idiots, are willing to say, that Charlie Kirk advocated for solving problems with his voice, for open debate. And out of the other end, they are saying, fuck open debate, get the guns. There's no going back after this. There's no more words to be said. The only way this ends is the complete annihilation of the Democratic Party. Every one of these stupid-ass, dumb motherfuckers engaging in doublespeak. Every single one of them. Like actual children. But I think Charlie Kirk did say it best. Some gun deaths are unfortunately necessary to uphold the Second Amendment. Anyway, as far as the arguments about the rhetoric of the left are concerned, when Trump is argued to be like Hitler, you get people like Geiger here saying, Trump is not Hitler. We don't have concentration camps. Enough with the fucking rhetoric. This shit is getting people like Charlie Kirk killed. Anyway, Alligator Alcatraz exists, but, we don't have camps. Anyway, Trump Tracker points out that didn't Charlie Kirk blame people's sexuality and identity as a result as to why some of their crimes happened, literally like 2 days ago? And of course, MAGA Maverick has to respond, you see, well, all he does is use facts and statistics. Anyway, all he does is use facts and statistics. According to the statistics, you're way more likely to commit crimes if you consider yourself trans. I don't think there's any stats that actually bear that out, but go ahead and Google it, sure. Anyway. And of course, the defense for this is he's just pointing out correlations. Yeah, but when you point out correlations, nobody makes an argument into the aether. You point out correlations because you're trying to imply causations. Now, again, what we know so far, and I'm going to refresh this page in case anything else happened. What we know so far about this is that this person right here is supposedly the person who killed Charlie Kirk. We do not know who they are. We do not know what they look like outside of these very, very blurry photos. That's all we know. That's the information that we have, period. We know that a manhunt for him is currently underway. We know that there's a $100,000 reward for any information leading to the identification of this person and an arrest of this person. But I want to point something out to you, just kind of important. Just kind of important. Do you remember the last time that a majorly important CEO of a company was killed and a large, substantial reward was offered in response to that person's, to the assailant's arrest? For if anything were to happen that were to lead to that arrest, they would offer a substantial award to the person who did that. And then a McDonald's worker did actually snitch on Luigi, who we still don't know if he's actually the killer, but he did do that. It did lead to an arrest, and he was not only denied all of the money that he was promised, he also lost his job as a result of that. The person who snitched lost their job and did not receive any of the money. And then, yeah, apparently she got terrorized off the internet as well. Bree says the employee is currently set to get 50,000 of that. Oh, did that actually change?
No.
Bree says they didn't lose their job. She quit because she was harassed. Yeah, she got harassed. So the other 10K, she only gets off if he's prosecuted. Point is, doesn't have her job, got harassed because of actually doing the thing that she thought she was supposed to do, and has not actually received $1 yet, as far as I know. Ratkin said that harassment is bad. She's just trying to survive like a lot of us poors. I'm sorry, but I feel like I can't give my opinion in response to that, so I'm just not going to do that. Danadan says, hey, sirs, I'm a special needs bus assistant in Texas. I got an email from our union. The Texas officials are doxing educators for being safe people, whether it's affirming a trans student by calling them their gender or posting their opinions on Blue Sky. Jesus fucking Christ. But just going to go ahead and remind everybody how this stuff operates. Just like insurance companies that promise to take care of you in sickness, the devil is in the details of the fine print. Turns out the reward money to snitch on Mangione was a holiday magic trick. The FBI put up $50,000 and the New York Police Department put up $10,000 for information leading to the arrest of the suspect in the murder. That's according to the bold print. Law enforcement said hundreds of people called in with leads in hopes of claiming that reward money, but it was the Mickey D's employees who called Alatoona, the Pennsylvania police, that led to Mangione's arrest as he sat eating breakfast. If you worked at McDonald's making less than $15 an hour and a wanted man walked in, you might snitch too. But because you didn't call the right people, apparently didn't receive the money. That's where we are at as far as I remember. Perfectly Flawed says, Suris, I met you in a bar in Saturday in Iowa. It was a fun conversation, so I thought I would pop by. Gotcha. Well, hello. How's it going? Hopefully you're having a good time. I remember a handful of people that I met in the bar on that Saturday in Iowa. I do remember a handful of those people. Right now we're talking about the Charlie Kirk incident. Now, I have another point that I want to throw out where all this is concerned. On the one hand, we obviously should not be celebrating the murder or death of a person. On the other hand, if we were to go with the actual words that Charlie Kirk wanted, we would have Coca-Cola sponsored televised executions of Trump's political opponents. I find it very weird to me how many people are hand-wringing about the murder of Charlie Kirk, when at the same time, he himself advocated for the public execution of political opponents. I just find it very hard to square those circles for me. Which, of course, because they would be televised, these would be things watched by kids and normalized to children. This is the stuff that he advocated for. I do not want any hand-wringing about Charlie Kirk nor his family in my comment section, because the actual words of the person there were that certain people should be stoned to death, and certain people should be publicly executed on TV, and these people should include just political fucking opponents. I cannot hold sympathy for that. I cannot. As for the future that Charlie Kirk advocated for in his life, well, if you have an older relative who is trying to work to retirement age so they can finally rest their weary bones, don't worry. Charlie Kirk publicly advocated for retirement to not be a thing for anybody because retirement was not biblical. Now, bear in mind, this is a man who, like me, works a very cushy job of sitting in a chair and having his opinions. And so the construction worker, the factory worker, the retail worker, the food service worker, the people whose bodies are getting broken down by their jobs, he advocated for all of those people to continue working and to continue to push their bodies to the brink. I can't have sympathy for that man. I cannot. Oh, and one final thing, or there's two final things I want to go over where this is concerned. Blazed Bunny says, I have no empathy for a man that would have me executed for being gay. That's fair. That's fair. Also, Perfectly Flawed, I appreciate you being here and subscribing. I apologize that this is the video you came in on. Now, I kept seeing whispers online about the motives of the shooter. Everybody saying that this was a far leftist shooter, all that other fun stuff, without any actual information that could lead to that conclusion. People were operating with no information whatsoever, and I sat for 24 hours as more and more non-information came out. And then I heard something. The people who have been arguing that this was a far leftist shooter have no evidence to point to, and the only bit of evidence that they have been able to cling on to, which may or may not have been real, we don't know, has been a theory that pro-trans political ideology was inscribed on the bullets that were found in the chamber of the bolt-action rifle that was used to kill Charlie Kirk. Now, we have not seen any images of these ammo casings. We have not seen any information to prove any of this. What we have is a singular source, a singular one. And I could not have guessed in 1,000 years who this source was going to be. I could not have guessed, but my moderator, Dorito, found it. Guys, guess who the source is for the trans agenda inscribed on the bullets? It's fucking Steven Crowder, the guy who is known for lying on his show constantly and misrepresenting data on his show constantly to support a political agenda. Let's go ahead and read what he says here. Exclusive! Because, of course, it's got to be exclusive. He's got to make money off this somehow. Exclusive! This morning, my team received an email from Officer at ATF. I also cannot afford an editor anymore, apparently. The email includes a screenshot from what appears to be an internal message describing a weapon and cartridges located by an ATF or other law enforcement near the scene of the Charlie Kirk shooting at the Utah State University. On September 10th, 2025, at approximately 12:24 p.m., conservative political influencer Charlie Kirk was shot, blah, 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 blah. You already know all this information. Charlie Kirk was shot, and we know that the weapon was a Mauser .30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. The spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds of the top-fed magazine. all cartridges have engraved words on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. An emergency trace has been submitted to an ATF SLC and is working leads generated by the trace. The firearms and ammunition have been taken by the FBI for DNA analysis and the fingerprint impressions. Upon completion of forensics, the firearm will be disassembled for additional importer information. Multiple people of interest have been contacted or detained because of eyewitness testimony and review of video footage. The primary suspect is yet to be identified. ATF is assisting the investigation with multiple other federal, state, and local partners, and the case is co-led by Utah and the FBI. Now, this seems interesting, but it's super weird to me that the very first... Oh, it's not here anymore? There we go. It seems weird to me that the New York Times pointed out that according to a preliminary internal report circulated inside the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, federal and local officials recovered ammunition with the rifle that appeared to be engraved with statements expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. But a senior law enforcement official with direct knowledge of the investigation cautioned that that report had not been verified by the ATF analysts, and it did not match other summaries of the evidence. And it might turn out to have been misread or misinterpreted. In fast-moving investigations, such status reports are not made public because they often contain a mixture of accurate and inaccurate information. Now, I don't have any information on exactly what is inscribed on these bullets, but I think the important thing is neither does Steven Crowder. Neither do you at time of recording at 8:44 p.m., on September 11th, 2025, this is not currently known information by the general public. And yet, the general public has been making a lot of fucking assumptions about this because people desperately want this to be a far leftist who killed Kirk. But let me throw a bunch of different alternatives at you. Yes, there could be a far leftist that did this. There's a non-zero chance of that being the case. There also could be a Groyper, a far-right Nicholas Fuentes fan who did this, because of the statements that have been made in positive about Israel by Charlie Kirk for the last few months. Charlie Kirk himself even said that he's worried that his position on Israel could get him hurt. It could be a far-right MAGA person who wants to incite a civil war and thinks that Charlie Kirk would be the perfect sacrificial lamb to make this happen. And if the bullets are inscribed with the ideologies that are suspected, I want to run something by you. Unlike the Luigi Mangione potential hit that happened, this was not something that happened in close-up. This was something that happened from 200 yards away with a bolt-action rifle. This was somebody who knew they were only getting one shot in and knew how to make the shot count. That is a type of person who has training or experience, either in the military or as a hunter. I talked this over with Ocean yesterday, and his theory was that it could easily be a hunter given the location that this happened in. And what would be the easiest way to get the left in trouble here? It would be to leave evidence behind that would suggest that this was a killing from the left, while being an incredibly well-trained rifleman from literally any other political ideology. We have a person who was highly skilled, and a person that was that skilled at doing this and thought out this killing might not have deliberately left clues that led exactly to who they are. That would be my guess. Tristan Allen says, what do you think of the theory that Netanyahu called the hit because Kirk said they shouldn't target kids, or that someone in the Trump called the hit? So here's the thing. I don't know if this is a hit. That's the problem, Tristan. We don't have that kind of information. We don't. We can put on the tinfoil hats all day long, but it doesn't get us anywhere. The information we have is that Charlie Kirk was killed. We know that a Mosser did it. We know that there was an empty cartridge inside the gun. And we know that the shooter was incredibly accurate at the range he was shooting at. That's the information we have. We do not have information about political ideology. We do not have information about motive. We do not have information about anything other than the guy's skin color and relative height. That's what we have. Trying to conclude anything from this point on is a fool's game. You do not have enough information. You can come up with a billion theories, and I don't care about those theories because we don't have the information to go off of for any of those theories. What we do know is that the numbers do not bear out, that generally speaking, you can automatically assume this is a Democrat or a leftist. Again, the numbers just do not show that. That does not mean that it wasn't one, but it's less likely that it is. I have given you, up to this point, all the information that I have. I have given you, up to this point, all the information that most people have. And we do not have anything else besides that. Yacobo says, wasn't the Trump shooter a Republican? Right wing in some way, shape, or form was what I could tell. Memory serves. Asheroth says, okay, 1, the only dominating possibility I could see in why weapons would be inscribed with trans anti-fascist ideology or messages would be to frame them. 2, are you capable of providing the email in question, or are you incapable of censoring the sender? 3, if a trans and an anti-fascist ideologist actually wanted some right-winger dead, I'm pretty certain they are more likely to use some sort of other message or false evidence to blame this on some other person rather than suggest their own demographic. Yeah. And again, all of those are valid things to say. What we have right now is not any more information to go off of. I can very quickly take another peek. And see if there's any other info. Okay, CNN, I understand you want to advertise this shit to me? Get rid of it. Thank you. Where's the update as of 3 minutes ago? Here's an update as of 3 minutes ago. The FBI director and Utah governor are set to hold a news conference tonight with other officials. And that is set to be at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. So that is going to be in another 40 minutes. So we can check that out when that happens. But as of right now, that's the information we've got. No more, no less. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Apologies, this is a long and dense video, but I wanted to cover every base I possibly could here, because there was a lot. We'll be following up on this as we go. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Limor Pinku, Love Bunny Games, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Aurora, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Curatorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.